All right, we're going to be bringing right back to it, and after V3 continuing to demonstrate why they're one of the dominant teams, this split putting them up to 5-0 record, still maintaining that perfect performance. This is the game that's going to put them to the test, taking on DFM, like we mentioned before, previous summer split champion, multi-time champion. As far as I believe the last 3 to 4 splits have all gone their way. This is going to be one of those matches that, well, for V3, it is not very make or break, but it bodes very unfortunately for DFM if they are to kind of lose this one in as convincing fashion as V3 has been able to pull off against a lot of other teams. Due to DFM has looked very shaky last week, especially, and week 1 as well. Just both weeks have not been looking like they're playing to form. Their drafts have been a little all over the place, and it has just kind of come to this point where you're watching DFM and you're looking at them and you're like, sure, individually, you're all great players. You all have talent. Don't get me wrong. Saros, amazing mid laner. Evi, great top laner. You have all the pieces of a great team, but there just is such a lack of cohesion when it comes to team play. The drafts have just been completely off in multiple games, and then just overall, it feels as if they are not critically outplaying their opponents in individual lanes. Then they just crumble and start to fall apart all throughout the mid to late game. And while they do have a winning record, it has not been clean and it has certainly not been easy for them. Meanwhile, V3 has kind of walked into every game with, here's our set game plan, here's how we're going to make it work. They seem to have answers available for every draft opportunity that bans throw at them. Well, DFM, it's kind of almost felt like they will pivot a draft halfway through and things will not look cohesive. That being said, DFM are still an outstanding team. You are still talking about the reigning champions, so not trying to take too much away from them. But when you're up at the top and you are in that spotlight, you are looked at the most critically. Meanwhile, V3 did finish third, a respectable finish to the last split. But this split came out from week 1 swinging, took down Sengoku and every other team along their way. This is the only other team that finished above them, as well as among the teams that tied for second, is the last of the teams that they need to beat. V3 have 3 teams that they needed to hold the title and sort of defend first place against. Sengoku, already down. CGA, already down. DFM, last to be shown here. Now, the one thing that I am going to immediately, or that I think is sort of an interesting point in this kind of a game is I typically look at Saros as a safe laner start to finish. He picks like Ziggs, Xerath, long range carries, Syndra as well, very safe laner. All of these champions are very easy for him to pilot without too much mistake or making too many critical errors. That being said, Ace and Boogie, we've seen typically the Galio-Nidalee combo. They've been playing very aggressively from that mid-jungle duo. And it would typically be a lot harder to kind of aggress onto a laner like Saros, who can play from such range. That being said, there was the game against Rascal Jester, where they just kind of gave up a double kill to Pink on Katarina, one of the only cats we've seen in Brawl play, and they just sort of walked into him. It felt like there was just no communication. It almost felt like their monitors turned off for a moment. So when you watch a game like that, it really starts to play a scary sign for what is going on in DFM side. Where are their comms? What are we missing from this team that we've been seeing in the weeks prior? Now that we are back moving into offline, we're removing it from the off, we're back in the stage, in the studio, teams are all lined up. You hope that when we get back to this point that the players are starting to recommunicate, we're back on the same level. They're not sort of in this lackadaisy, lethargic kind of state that they get from playing in their cozy home environments. And I'm hoping, for DFM's sake, that is what, what was happening. That is what was the issue for them. That being said, V3 Esports, if that is not the case, and the V3 are really the ones who are coming into this as just asserting themselves as a better team, they fix everything they need to, they could be the ones standing tall at the end of this split quite easily. And of course, DFM in finals always seems to be a different beast, but we're a long ways away from that. And going off of just what we have, I'm a little bit worried for DFM's, or a little bit worried about what to expect from the side of DFM. Now, a lot of the changes, there are a lot of the past few patches hasn't really impacted a whole lot of play, and thusly has not kind of shaken up the meta very much for DFM to really find like their pocket picks or anything like that. Seros especially, I feel as if being the mid laner that he is with such a wide range of champions under his belt has kind of has a lot of the champions that were like, oh, this is my pocket pick, these are my these are the things I have, these are my utilities, has ended up kind of swinging their way into the regular meta. So when you watch kind of, his Karma, his Ziggs, and things of that nature kind of swing back into more traditional play, a lot more teams end up geared to play against it. A lot more teams end up ready to take on those picks. And when it comes to that, does a player like Seros start to lose his edge, start to lose that advantage he gets from playing playing off champions and making opponents really think about different meta choices? All of that being said, we'll see where we're going for the rest of this draft. I think draft is definitely going to be very telling in this game, as of course I'm always kind of a stickler for drafts. I think they're very, very important. But with the way DFM has been drafting, you cannot draft a lukewarm team comp of, we have some doing this, some doing that, and we're just going to hope to outplay them to get to that point. That's not how this works when you're playing against a team like V3 that you owe this level of respect. They are 5-0. As this point, they are the ones on top that you need to be answering. So when we roll through the rest of this game, I definitely think there are this is the highlight of the week for me, at least, to be sure. But most definitely, I think if V3 keeps their drafts as coherent as they have, if they are keeping all of their comp on the same page and they're really playing this to perfection, it's going to be the difference maker 100%. As this is, V3 top to bottom is not a team you just get to freely outplay. As good as a lot of the members of DFM are, there's just outplaying your opponent will only get you so far in the pro stage, as we wait for Champion Select to go ahead and get on here. Now, the other thing that I do sort of want to talk about when it comes to DFM is you look at their weeks prior, and let's talk about the teams that they beat to get here. You're talking, week 1, DFM did pull out against Hawks Gaming. They pulled, and then in week 2 they beat Rascal Jester and they beat Axis. And not to be too rude, but those are some of the lower of the bracket teams. Those are like the bottom half. Then when they're running up against with the loss to Sengoku was really what kind of made me scared, or at least for them, is that was the team that, of course, you do expect to kind of have a chance. They beat them once in the finals. I believe they had a win on them in the spring split itself, during regular season, and then during playoffs. And then the set was I believe was 3-1 in grand finals for them. So you expect Sengoku to be coming out swinging, but when it comes to DFM, kind of like how close a lot of the games, especially that Rascal Jester game, these are games that should not be close. You should not be letting a Katarina run over your team. You should, like, there's just things like that that when I watch, I look at DFM and I think, and I'm wondering, what are we missing? And hopefully, now that we're all back in the stage, that pressure is back on, we'll be able to see the cohesion kind of come back together for them. Meanwhile, for the side of V3, most of this is the last of their bracket demons. After this, they'll, we're resetting who we're playing in the split, so they'll have some easier matches lined up after this. And we'll see where things go about from here. And one thing I do want to kind of talk about, as far as the way the meta has kind of been, and especially the way DFM drafts, is the Trundle priority that we have been seeing. It has been a little bit interesting. In my honest opinion, Trundle's kind of been overvalued in the drafts by a lot of teams in a lot of different regions. Trundle just kind of being locked in on either R1 at times or B1, B2 Trundle is exploitable. And we did actually see, I was watching LCK, I believe, the night before, and they were working on counters to the Trundle. There were things that they were answering Trundle with quite effectively. Now that, we're finding answers for Trundle, I think Boogie, of all people, is a jungler that can answer Trundle. He's been answering it with the Nidalee. That whole game, the whole last game, Tussle was not able to keep pace with him at all. Losing objectives, barely keeping up in farm while having zero of the gank presence that Boogie was able to have on the map. So if you end up giving Steel a Trundle right away, if you show too much priority, what is Boogie going to have in store for you? And if you are Steel, how are you going to leverage the advantage that you're getting from drafting that Trundle so early on? And I would personally like to see Trundle dropping in priority a little bit, or at least just not being like a blind pickup off of B1, B2, but will remain to be seen. That is sort of the last of the things that I think are worth mentioning throughout this game is the priority on Aphelios, and I expect DFM to show high priority over to the Aphelios. I wouldn't be surprised at an R1 Aphelios pickup. It's just one of those picks that the counter picks are still coming. We're still working on how do we beat 200 plus years of experience coming out of that AD carry position, especially with a lot of the other ADs in a little bit worse for wear of a state. So one of the things that I will kind of like to see is, do V3 still have that answer prepared? You were able to make the Callista set work onto that bottom side to be aggressive onto the Aphelios, which is a good sign. But I worry a little bit when you're running up against Utapon, and when it comes to running up against a little bit more ADs with a little bit more experience at the upper end of the bracket. So things for them to kind of keep an eye out for as we're moving through the rest of this game. Still waiting for drafts to get started up here. Now, one of the other things that I do kind of look at as far as this matchup specifically is I really want to see how the mid lane ends up playing out, because a team like DFM, I would expect to be prepared to deal with the mid-jungle duo between Ace and Boogie and have answers for that, or at least Seros to be playing with a decent amount of respect. All of that kind of being said, a lot of we've seen a lot of mid lane pivots towards very global champions, especially coming out from V3. Galio, Twisted Fate has been swinging back into the meta a lot recently, and just a lot of other potential roam champs that you don't need to be in the mid lane the whole time. You have opportunities elsewhere on the map that you can be presented with. So I would personally like to see if V3 are even going to be engaging in that mid jungle 2v2 at all. Will still remain to be seen. I think we should be getting draft underway here in just a moment. There we are, yeah. So, gonna be starting things up here. DFM first up to ban, taking away Callista. Like we mentioned, V3 just showed that that is a pick they have ready for an Aphelios. So, DFM likely gonna be trying to secure themselves a safe Aphelios lane by taking away a couple options on the side of V3 here. Galio as well, removed from Ace's hands. And I wouldn't be surprised to see V3 opt into an Aphelios ban here. DFM are already going to be throwing so much ban attention to trying to preserve this Aphelios. I wouldn't be surprised if V3 wait for their last ban to throw it at an Aphelios, but DFM banning the Galio as well. Wouldn't be surprised to see a Trundle ban or a Set ban. Also decent pickup here. Now V3 also banning away Nidalee is a little bit interesting from the side of V3 Esports. A little bit of respect to Steel that he is also able to pilot that carry very well. But removing it from Boogie's own hands is a little bit interesting. That's sort of one of those bans that I would expect to, when you look at, is something that I would have liked to see V3 kind of invest in and see if they can attract a ban later on with leaving Nidalee open. But we'll see how things go from here. Is DFM eyeing up a blind Aatrox? Would definitely be an interesting one. It's Twisted Fate's going to be the one that's locked in here. Seros most likely going to be piloting that one. It's a fairly strong lock-in from the side of DFM as Aphelios is still open, although Twisted Fate is typically known for being a good pick into Aphelios, especially towards the later ends of just painting your targets for your team, as well as decent poke from the cards on queue. But V3 are going to take the Aphelios up here, and we'll see what the rest of V3 have going for them. There's a couple picks they still can lock in. Karma still on the table, or you can lock in the Thresh or Nautilus right away if you just want to secure your support pick alongside the Aphelios. The sort of iffy part for locking in your support, as they lock in Lee, is if you were to lock in the support right there, you're opening both AD and support counter coming out on the side of DFM, as their next picks are going to be looked at here. Thinking about the Fiddlesticks. Don't think we'll be seeing that one coming out anytime soon, as Ashe is going to be coming in here for the side of DFM. And Ivern would be an interesting one. We have not actually seen a whole lot of Ivern in the LJL. Actually, in pro play in general, Ivern's kind of been a little bit hard to work with, just due to the amount of champions that have so much solo pressure on either objectives or running around the jungle. But DFM are going to lock themselves in a Tom Kench for the support lane, offering a bit of support and a little bit of global pressure coming out from DFM. That's a lot of actually global pressure between the Abyssal Voyage and the Twisted Fate Ultimate. Able to move around the map very, very quickly and get rotations out. Well, V3 Esports, I don't think this, please don't lock in the Fiddles. Yes, I was going to say, I was like, that is not going to be a Fiddlesticks, but the Thresh locked in here for V3. And meanwhile, V3 can kind of pinch away a little bit more of the jungle pool now. But giving attention towards the top lane immediately, Renekton likely will also see a Wukong ban to try and remove some dive threats that can be followed up on with an Ashe Arrow, with a Twisted Fate ulting into the backline, things of that nature. While DFM can kind of set up an ideal mid lane scenario, we might see things like the Zoe ban or LeBlanc ban coming out here on the first half here. Syndra also going to be banned away. The Syndra's a little bit interesting as super underexplored is the Syndra counter into Aphelios. We have not seen a lot of that. We have seen Syndra bot lanes in the past, but hasn't gotten a ton of value out on the side of, or in the LJL in general. As we're awaiting V3's last ban, I wouldn't be surprised to see V3 look at things like a Kindred here coming up in the next few picks, or even we might see another Maokai, things just very defensive in nature. I would be worried to see an Ornn, although it does offer them good engage. The only risk, of course, is setting up an ideal lane for the Ornn. We've seen plenty of tanks in the top lane just suffer so hard from being bullied and then not able to get to their items, as Ornn is going to be taken away from V3 Esports here. As question is, do you blind pick the mid laner or the top lane? As V3 looking at an Akali. Akali did get buffed recently, but LeBlanc, of course, hyper priority, is going to be locked in here, and Zoe is up for the side of DFM if they want to kind of push on to that kind of catch potential that they would be offering. But it is a little bit difficult to... It's a little bit difficult to kind of pick a Zoe here because LeBlanc definitely has an easier time in that lane, but then also is kind of risky as a mid laner, especially into champions like Lee, so gonna be drafting up Wukong here, saving Seros' counter pick till the bitter end. I wouldn't be surprised to see things possibly like an Orianna coming out from the side of DFM here. Pantheon would add to their catch potential and to a lot of their global influence. I'd be worried to see it into an Aphelios specifically, but they will be locking it in. DFM looking to just pick their targets between the Twisted Fate Ultimate, Abyssal Voyage, and the Grand Skyfall. A lot of ability to move around the map and get onto anyone they want as V3 will lock in the Maokai. I love to see that kind of thing coming out from the side of V3 Esports. Very defensive picks being drafted up. More Maokai is always I'm always a fan of. Well, it looks like teams are set here. V3 Esports definitely has a mean comp in the terms of team fights, while DFM, any member of V3 that wanders too far away from safe waters, is subject to quite the onslaught. A lot of global influence, a lot of ability to move around the map very quickly. So DFM definitely have a win con they can look towards. My only issue is worrying about this Aphelios and worrying about how do you eventually get towards him when it comes to needing to finish off Aphelios, finish off LeBlanc, both champions either very slippery or just have more than enough damage to deter you from doing just that. And as we wait to load in here, if I'm gonna offer my predictions this early on, I have to say I'm trusting V3 Esports here. DFM definitely has a comp that can be pulled off and can be pulled off quite effectively. The only worry that I run into is their weeks prior has not instilled a lot of faith in me that they can pull this off. Especially just with communication issues, or at least what looked like communication issues coming out. V3 definitely has a position where if DFM are not constantly putting pressure up and is running beat for beat, tracking down V3 wherever they go, V3 can easily run away, get to the late game, and start team fighting.
LJL 2020サマースピリットウィーク3ゲーム3デトネーションフォーカスミー vs V3 スポーツの試合スタートです。それではコーチインタビュー
Alright, and as we start things up here, looking across the rune pages, we're just seeing fairly traditional runes. Seros opting for the unsealed spellbook. Gives him a little bit more utility when he is making those roam plays, trying to assert himself on the map. Now, if I had to guess, DFM would definitely be looking towards the bottom side of things when it comes to trying to keep this Aphelios down early. You can easily send Twisted Fate and Pantheon flying in on that lane at any given moment, but Boogie is absolutely one of those junglers that if he has a side of the map that he wants to look towards, he is going to lock it off and lock it off hard. So on a pick like Lee Sin, it's a little bit harder to do that, but we'll see what Boogie is able to do here. He's actually starting no leash on the red buff here. DFM know it. We'll see where the pathing goes from here, as a gang is just going to face check right into Archer here. Going to find a decent amount of chunk. Reyna going to flay away, use the Aftershock to stay high HP there, and that's an early pot burn from Archer. As gang really just kind of walked him down there. Not a whole lot you can do. You have to respect the potential of just slowing and kiting this out in the spot lane. It's definitely a lane you need to be careful of. That being said, you know Boogie's coming early, so you got to get your licks in while you can. Yes, that is a Tom Kench joke, but as we continue moving forward, the other thing I do kind of look at in the top lane of things as Paz is finding himself a decent trade up there. Both of them have pot and a cookie to keep themselves topped off, but Paz in the top lane can absolutely be a linchpin. If he gets bullied out too hard, if he can't hang out in this lane, it's only going to get harder as the lane goes on. But then even more than that, if, like we said, we've just seen so many tanks getting bullied out so hard in the LJL that they were just not tanky enough to stand up in the later portions of the game. And as we're seeing here, Boogie did clear back towards the top side, looking to take advantage of Maokai in the gank assist, but meanwhile, Steel wandering around on the bottom side here will give V3 a bit of pressure to work around. So trading on the crabs for now. The early parts of this game definitely start to favor DFM, unless of course V3 is able to find a lot of value. If Boogie is able to kind of make things happen on the early parts of this game, can spell benefit, but definitely ball is in DFM's court to really start things off. As a hook finds on to gang there, not a target you can dump a ton of damage into, but burning out the E cooldown. Here comes the arrow, going to be not actually spotting Boogie. Oh, it did see the chickens, but unless you were staring right at them, not an opportunity, and Boogie might know it. He's looking for an opportunity here onto Seros. Gold card up. Will Seros walk up for these minions? He knows something is afoot. Here comes the root. Not going to flash it away. Q is landed. There goes a gold card. Will they be able to finish? Boogie wants it, but can't quite finish. Beautiful stuff from Seros to hold out on the flash there. And he actually did avoid the second turret shot as well. Had he taken it, it definitely could have been a bit worse, but other than a good chunk over onto Seros, not anything of too much value there. And now Mountain Drake spawning up here. DFM definitely have the more priority to be moving towards this, as Seros is cresting to that level 6. Reyna looking to exhibit a bit of pressure. Needs to be careful kind of walking that far up. V3 not exactly in a strong position on the bottom side of the map, but Paz doing his best to just keep trades out here. Boogie's going to be coming up here, though, as Evi will be able to dodge out. The Q is not going to be able to get onto anyone important, and there comes Steel flying in. A beautiful counter gank there. As Boogie just kind of got caught up in the minions there, wasn't able to land the Sonic Wave onto Evi before Steel came flying in. Both flashes burned, but first blood over to Pantheon on the side of DFM. A beautiful hook onto Archer this time, or onto Utapon this time, but is able to escape out on that one. The safety TK comes to offer that bot lane, coming in handy in that scenario, but for now, V3 still looking for opportunity to open this map up. They're kind of okay with giving up a little bit early. Of course, death like that, not ideal for pause, as it will only serve to make that lane harder. That being said, somewhat expected, as the early game is definitely, like we mentioned, DFM favored. So as long as V3 aren't losing much more, their chances in this game are still holding high. As Gang is wandering up here, Reyna and Gang both looking to assert some vision here, but DFM are going to be first up. Beautiful pink ward is actually going to spot out the attempt onto Ace in the mid lane there. 75 gold to save a life is not a bad trade, but Gang is going to be here to help shove the lanes. It looks like DFM are trying to set up an early Drake opportunity. Setting up that wave. Ace, good dodge out on the poke, but DFM can really just start this Drake up right away. And V3 Esports, this is definitely a Drake you just want to be giving up, and it looks like that is a call, as Boogie's going to be backing there. Not quite strong enough to contest just yet. BF Sword is not enough on Nephelios to really get things going there. As well as, just due to the nature of DFM's comp, if the fight goes bad, it is going to get worse and worse very quickly, just due to the amount of chase down and like lock up potential that DFM have between the slows and being able to route TF and Pantheon to opposite ends of the map. And right now, it feels like DFM are doing a great job of keeping tabs on Boogie. You can see more pings coming out. They're just checking around their jungle, but they know about where he is. And that pays dividends when it comes to keeping this Lee Sin from getting any amount of early advantage. Archer's going to flash forward, get the stun there. But the arrow onto Reyna, beautiful target selection from Utapon there. Knows that once Archer flashes, he's not that much of a threat anymore, but Reyna not following as well with the flash. Possibly a little bit of disconnect there on the bottom lane. Archer, I'm sure, thought that he was going to be able to lock that in. Oh, narrowly avoiding that hook. But, that thought may be held as Boogie returns to the mid lane. We've seen this movie once before, but Hawkshot will be able to spot him out there. Ace will just take that time to get a couple autos in. What I was going to say is, sort of felt a little bit forced on the side of V3 Esports. You do go flash for flash after tossing the Moonlight Vigil, so it's flash ult for flash ult. But possibly Reyna not flashing, because once the Moonlight Vigil missed, he was thinking, oh, well, we won't worry about that. But then he goes for the flash auto Q to get the root off, and I don't think Reyna was quite prepared for the continued advance there. That being said, DFM slowly accruing a gold advantage, about 1k in their favor, grabbing up the Rift Herald as well. They're looking to start building up their gold stockpile. One thing that they'll definitely need to be doing against V3 Esports, because when it comes to these later end team fights, you are not exactly going to be going toe-to-toe with them on an even gold, so we'll see where Steel ends up putting that when he's on the bottom side of the map for now. And there is great amount of vision to protect Archer on this side of the map. You can see all of the vision that DFM or V3 have set up in DFM's jungle. So where else to go but top lane for DFM if they want to get a good Rift Herald play. I believe the vision is set up far enough that you won't be able to Grand Skyfall in without V3 seeing. But we'll see how things go. And right now, Boogie's going to need to stay on the top side of the map if he wants to help out. As Steel waiting in the wings here. Ace is going to go for a trade. He has ultimate queued up on W, so he's not in too much danger from a gank there. But now, trying to move around the map. It looks like they're going on the top lane. Here he comes. Grand Skyfall in. Evi's going to use the ultimate to just try and keep everyone locked up there, but he does not have enough HP to blast this one out. Steel utilizing the E just to Dodge out on the turret shot there. Beautifully played from V3 or from DFM, and this is exactly what this comp does. It dives and it gives global pressure. It says no matter where you are, no turret can save you. As they're gonna pick up a kill for Seros in the mid lane. Continuing their tempo. As there's not a whole lot you can really do if you are Paz in the top lane. He did have flash, so he could have gone for some fancy stuff up towards the top side. But at that point, there are 3 members, you know, diving onto you. Once Steel is already tanking, it's so easy for him to keep aggro on himself and hold out for a couple turret shots. Seros picks up a nice little wave of CS there. Beautiful Q. And we'll enjoy the low state for a little while longer, but 30 seconds up for this Ocean Drake. V3 are at that point where you could make the argument for contesting, but it would be very risky because the game could easily get out of their hands if this game, or if it ends up going that way. As well as Steel, not too much time left on that Rift Herald that Rift Herald timer. We'll need to be spawning that up for this Ocean Drake. Here comes the Ocean Drake. Boogie's in a great position. As pings come out, they know where DFM are. So Rift Herald is spawned up here. Boogie and Arena waiting in the wings. They find a hook, but that's not exactly a target that they can follow all the way through on. Boogie's gonna follow that in. It's kind of in a rough spot there, but gets over the wall in time as Shelly's collecting some solo gold of her own in the mid lane. And it looks like that might have deterred the dragon play for now, which is nice to delay, especially now that there's no Rift Herald also adding pressure on. But Boogie might be finding himself routing onto Utapon. Narrowly avoids the arrow. Flash kick is in. Archer's gonna flash as well. And that's... No, they're not quite gonna finish him off. The Moonlight Vigil is sidestepped. And 2 teleports coming in. This is disastrous for V3 Esports as they're going to lose 1. Paz is gonna find the dive to make it a 1-for-1 overall. But here comes a Grand Skyfall. Archer can't get away from this one. He is going to go down. A 1-for-2 in the end. As Ace should be able to get away from this one. No, Evi. I believe Ace actually used his R a little bit too early and didn't have the second dash available. As now Paz is just going to kind of get soloed out towards this bottom side here. An opportunity for V3 goes sorely awry as Utapon ends up living through everything. And this is exactly the risk we talked about, where if V3 end up losing a bit after that fight, not only do you lose the Drake, but you lose this advantage that you worked hard to achieve. Boogie goes in for the kick, and there's just barely not enough damage after they heal. Beautifully done by Utapon to hold on to that one. And then at that point, V3 is just too deep in. Paz flashes in just to try and make sure the kill happens. But it's a little bit bittersweet for the most part, as that's not exactly something that you can capitalize off of afterwards. You know you're sacrificing yourself for that flash. And now V3 are in a little bit of a harrowing position for DFM to really start running away with this one. 3k gold advantage. As Boogie has been looking and looking at this mid lane, but Seros has just been able to play so safe for so long. Not presenting very many opportunities for him. And as now, DFM secure themselves a second Rift Herald. This one can also go immediately to the mid lane if they want to crack open that first turret. And as it stands, DFM are the favorites for this one. The nice thing for V3 here, after losing those first 2 Drakes, is that this is not a very threatening soul. Cloud Soul can kind of be... It's risky to give over to DFM, as the extra move speed after teleports is going to be huge for the side of DFM. They can make great use of it, but it's not an Ocean Soul or an Infernal Soul that's much harder to battle through. That being said, for DFM, this isn't exactly a game you can wait for Soul. You have the ball rolling in your favor at a decent pace. Keeping that up is really going to be the route to victory here. They can wait for Soul. That is still an option. It's not even a bad one. But one thing we have kind of criticized DFM for in the past is drawing these games out, waiting for every bell and whistle that you can possibly get. And it can sometimes end up being their own detriment, as Ace got to look for an electrocute proc there onto Saros. Another hawk shot goes flying, spots out Boogie and Ace there. As Saros has been doing a wonderful job of just absorbing pressure from this mid-jungle duo. DFM came prepared to play against V3, it feels. And their 4K gold lead is indicative of just that. Rift Herald spawned up. It is just going to knock down the turret here, as Ace doing his best to clear out the wave. Knocking that one down, not holding onto it for the Cloud Drake, but a little bit hard to sync up those timers all the time, so as V3 are grouped up here, DFM sneaking around, looking for opportunities. But a well-placed ward will keep them safe for now. As they look towards the bottom side of things, it's a little bit dangerous for Ace to be the one answering here, as there's a large amount of dive potential coming out from the side of DFM. Ace really can't walk up to this turret. Ace will just get stunned up by Steel backing in the bush, and this is going to be another turret over to DFM that V3 just kind of can't answer at the given moment. Now, the sort of upside is that in terms of carries, both mid and ADs are kind of even in CS, so you're not losing too hard in that department. The risky one is, of course, like I mentioned, top lane kind of getting bullied out, about 30 CS down, as well as being 1-3. It's a little bit hard to fight back from, especially when you need to be the tanky member here. Evi's going to take a trade onto pause. No Sonic Wave landed, so no opportunity there. And now V3 trying to just figure out how they find their way back into this one. This Cloud Drake is pretty much the last one that they'll need to give up if they of course decide to give it up, as Aphelios is starting to get closer and closer to that 2-item spike. You really want both. You really want 2 items on Aphelios before you start fighting a lot. So little bit risky for V3 to take a contest on this one, and they seem to know it, as all of their vision is going towards this Baron side. Look, DFM climbing themselves to Soul Point, and 2 turrets to boot. Now, the sort of awkward position for DFM in terms of trying to keep this ball rolling is top lane is the lane to be for your next turret, as well as just most of the gold is going to be in the top side. While on the side of V3 Esports, playing towards the top end of the map seems to be where they're strongest right now in terms of vision, so DFM may need to be a touch careful about how hard they answer, but given the gold deficit in favor of DFM right now, they can kind of tread where they please, even if that is right into the arms of a Maokai Saproling. That being said, you can see the members of DFM approaching to try and battle for this vision war going on in the river here. It's DFM walking down this turret. Saros is actually just going to be able to secure this one for free. as there's not really any members of V3 that want to be walking up this far. They're recognizing their position in this game and just kind of saying, all right, we need to kind of play back. We have to play towards more safety rather than less before we get run down. You can see Reyna waiting just in range. He's like, I have a lantern for you. I can pull you out. Because right now it's just all about keeping their carries safe. And DFM are taking the extra room of pressure to be shoving in these lanes. This is actually where I would love to see DFM trying to freeze out waves on their side of the map. You really need to be cutting V3 off from the amount of gold that they have. As Ace looking for a little bit of harass there onto Utapon. Finds the safety of a TK belly. And now as we're kind of moving into the point of the game where V3 can start to answer fights, they're going to also have to be answering a large gold deficit, almost about 4k to that one, or excuse me, almost about 5k to that one. It's a bit hard to battle back from when there's full item advantages in the hands of Saros and Utapon. So V3 are still looking for their way back into this one. Now for the side of DFM, they are slowly trying to encroach into the jungle of V3 Esports, and this looks like an opportunity. Gang's gonna eat up and spit out his friend, but they can take the kick opportunity as he's got a W back in. He waited for the flash and unfortunately well held by Gang to get that one off. They are going to not be able to get him down all the way, but that's a very low Evi in the face of everyone. Archer's going to be able to get huge damage as Reyna finds a great hook onto Utapon, forces out his summoners. Steel's in the middle of everyone trying to tank the world, but Archer just is so much time to do damage as he's now only going to half HP. Flashing forward's a little bit risky, but he cleanses away the stun from Steel. Beautifully played as Archer is masterfully getting around this fight. Beautiful stuff from the side of Archer, flashing forward and undeterred. He knows he has cleanse ready as soon as Steel tries to punish and ends up kiting the fight out wonderfully. V3 have just found a monstrous fight to give them Baron now and give them a ton of pressure to get back into this game. I'd love to watch the replay of that one as they're going to secure Baron for the side of V3, and DFM sort of tried to find a counter engage off of getting caught, and it ended up costing them. So you understand the situation here is Gang is forced to burn his flash and you're thinking you're getting away and all is well. Totally fine. But when this route comes out, Evi makes the call to look for a multi-man knockup, and he gets it, sure, but that is still an Aphelios with Flamethrower. He is still a lot of damage. I love Saros' play here to get onto the opposite end of this and try to find Ace there, but in their negligence of focusing on Archer, he just gets so much value out of this fight. A beautiful flash, and Reyna finding two good hooks there. That's right, we're right back into it. Boogie's already finding one. That's going to be Ace finding the other one. Kick Gang back into everyone. The Stone Plate's not going to save him as V3 just find 4 right back again. V3 are showing exactly why they picked this comp. They said, all right, you guys have your fun, but when it comes to the team fights, when it comes to pulling these triggers, there's no time to even give a recap of the last plays. Can V3 just end the game here? Steel has a decent respawn timer coming up in about 5 seconds. V3 might just be looking for an end as Reyna's going to be walking in to try to take a couple turret shots. Here comes the minion wave, but V3 are going to back away for now. Grab up that Cloud Drake as well as a hefty amount of gold given over to the side of V3 Esports. Things just got scary for DFM as This Aphelios became very big in a very short amount of time. Grabbing up the Cloud Drake as well. More kick opportunities for the Lee, as well as more Moonlight Vigils flying out. Never a bad sight. So we'll watch this one more time. I wasn't even prepared for this one as Reyna finds a hook over the wall onto Evi. Just gets a huge amount of damage, and at that point, he's out of the fight. But the Grand Skyfall was already channeled, and he is forced into this one. Beautiful Sonic Wave snipe from Boogie ends up finding him there, while the rest of V3 have all the time in the world to deal with Steel. And look at Udapon, who just unfortunately was not able to get any value out of that fight. Was just zoned. There's too many things he has to walk past when it comes to these 5v5 engagements. And as we're walking down the last of this Baron play, V3 had picked up quite the hefty amount of gold, but teleports are coming in from the side of DFM. They're looking to find out V3. He burns the cleanse, but there's a lot more CC where that came from. As V3 can kite this one backwards, here comes the Moonlight Vigil finding his way in as DFM are globbing up, but nothing that V3 can't get away from. Beautiful kite out on their side. That's a teleport and a Twisted Fate ultimate burned. You do end up getting Archer's cleanse, which is a great help for this Twisted Fate. But you'll need to continue being careful here. Now they're trying to siege down this last turret. Evi trying to just wonder what he can do against V3 at this point, who have just taken a firm control of this game, finding their own gold lead now at about 2k there. Paz walking on over. He says minions are clear, Super's coming in. He's ready to play with his team and find zoning positions while the rest of DFM are trying to find an answer here. How do you engage on this comp? And it's quite difficult to even mount an engage. Well, they push down the turret here. Archer, great weapons for this fight if a fight does break out. While Saros does have teleport, so is going to roam down to the bot lane to try and get the wave pushing back against V3. But V3 make the call to take it back here, reset for this Baron. Now, this is fine, of course, because it is sort of risky to try and force a play on a DFM there. That being said, playing around these objectives, even if DFM now are slightly on the back foot, they still have great opportunity to utilize the ultimates, find flanks, and hopefully sow chaos in the side of V3 so that you can find ways onto Archer like you need to if you're going to try to burn this fight down. The sort of issue is nothing really blows Aphelios up on the side of DFM. Evi is not the more damage-oriented Wukong, as well as just is not going to be able to kill through Chakram Severum combos, or just the raw amount of Conquer healing and Bloodline healing that comes out from Archer on this Aphelios. As we're kind of looking things out here, yeah. The controller having the exact same idea that I was thinking. V3, 4 stopwatches on their side. It's just so hard to even get an initiation off at that point when you have that kind of stall potential. But here comes the Hawk shot, spawning V3 on it. DFM are gonna need to mount a defense if they want to keep this Baron from going down. Gang trying to wander his way in. It's another Hawk shot's going to ring out. That's the last one for a little while. As teleport comes in, here comes Saros. They're going to take the fight, but Paz is on the flank here. Here comes a Grand Skyfall, first to initiate that one. Evi goes in with the ultimate. Ace can be kiting out towards the top side, but that means Evi is left stranded. The rest of DFM are nowhere near, as Steel was forced to kite out as Saros tries to use the ultimate just to get away from that one. Nothing he can really do. Paz is going to go down on the other end of things as Archer flashes the wall, says he's ready for a fight, and look at the damage coming through. Gets stunned up, but then goes to Zanya's. Will this be enough time? As yes, it will, and V3 find their fight. Not quite going to be able to finish off Steel just yet, but should have enough pressure to try and push this one in. Boogie is here. Lantern's going to shield him up. At this point, Pantheon just does not do enough damage. They have to go catch the wave before they can get anything done, but at least this is Baron for them, as well as should be able to nab up the Cloud Drake for DFM. We'll watch this one more time. So Steel makes the call to go in, and Evi goes for the follow-up, but then at that point, Steel just ends up so far out of this fight that he is just not able to get anything done. He's kiting backwards with the E while Evi's trapped on the other end of the wall there. Paz utilizes the ultimate, and although he goes down here, just look at the amount of time he buys. They can wait through Seros' Zanya's, and then Archer just says he wants all of it and more, flashing over the wall just to get as close into melee range that Aphelios loves to be. And now, with Baron in tow, Cloud Drake going to be nabbed up here by V3 Esports before they'll likely be putting all their attention onto this bottom side, grabbing up those last few turrets. Question is, will DFM go for a contest here? Yes, they will. Evi teleporting in. This is the last stand for DFM. If they can't pull it off here, it's going to be difficult. The Grand Skyfall is just going to whiff as Paz is trying to keep Evi locked up on that side. Reyna going to get a beautiful flay in. The box is good as Seros is going to be forced to run away on that one. Archer still full HP, just firing away. Ace in the front lines here, gets stunned up, but no damage coming through. He can't quite be finished as Paz and Reyna going very, very low to the Cyclone as Evi's clone going to go down here. The beautiful W find from Utapon is going to be enough, but Archer's just still full HP. DFM can't find an answer to Archer as he's just able to walk forward almost freely. Boogie goes for the kick combo, doesn't quite get it, but is going to be able to find Boogie or Evi in the end as he's going to blast cone away. And at this point, V3 are just content to try and end the game. That's two of their tankier members down, and their frontline being harassed and run off as often as possible. Ace off of a fresh respawn, but it looks like V3 are going to return to the Cloud Drake for now. They will grab up their second Cloud Drake and just play it slow. Of course, was kind of an awkward fight as a lot of the members of DFM were able to sneakily live that one through. That being said, I like that fight from both sides. I like the fight from DFM because that was as clean of a fight as you can get, save for that Pantheon ultimate. That being said, DFM just play this fight out as best they can. They try to slow the fight down. They try to use Utapon and Seros as effectively as they can to just kite out, slow down, and keep the pace in their control. Now, the reasons I like it on the side of V3 Esports is that Archer does not get over-eager at any point in this fight. He doesn't overcommit and get himself killed. The whole time, he's just playing the fight accordingly. And at the point they're at, it's just advantage V3. There's not a whole lot that DFM can do in that scenario when both teams are playing the fights out as best they can. And now, this is an even harder Aphelios to kill. Death Dance and a QSS completed. There's just a lot to get through. Cleanse and QSS are just really all the defensive tools that he's going to need. That'll be enough stuns not landed. While V3 will try to knock down another turret here. Not a whole lot of minions, but Paz accounts for most of that as it will knock down one more turret. Super minions are on their way. So DFM will need to be answering that soon enough. Meanwhile, V3 will just enjoy their time sieging down the last of this turret as Ace looking to see if he can get any harass, just trying to set up a little bit of vision. But V3 kind of know that this isn't a comp that you can really force on. There's so much CC to keep you locked up under turret. V3 aren't exactly in a position that they can... Sure, you can send Maokai forward, but if he ends up cycling W, you don't know who's going to be picking up aggro afterwards. So V3 taking the safe option, just trying to escort waves in, Ace in the mid lane to do just that. Archer smartly actually uses his QSS there instead of his cleanse to hold on to the Nimbus Cloak proc, as DFM going to be rotating back over to deal with the minion waves there. V3 possibly could have just walked up to the wave there if they send pause in first, but holding off on that one for now. No need to rush things, says V3, as Baron is up in about a minute. They might just make the call to go for their third Baron here. And this is V3 showing DFM the respect that, honestly, in this game, they've earned. Like I was criticizing earlier, DFM looked just kind of disjointed, but this is DFM looking to the kind of form that I expect from them. And V3 are really being forced to work for it because of that. As we'll take some resets for Baron here. DFM have proven that they can still pull this fight in their favor if V3 are over eager. That being said, V3 have the wallet size that they can just shred through any mistakes DFM make when it comes to playing too far forward in this game. And now, as we're looking for the game end opportunity, V3 are just taking an aggressive position to try and buy as much space for their Baron attempt as they can. Now, Boogie's not exactly there. They do need to be careful that Steel doesn't ult in, as you can't quite bait the, oh, the jungler's not there when the other jungler can be flying in, but DFM are slowly starting to encroach. Baron at about half HP. Teleport's coming in. 4k HP down to 3. V3 might just be able to burn this one out, but Evi's going on to Ace to try and zone him away. That is going to be going over to Boogie on the side of V3 Esports. The Maokai ultimate comes in. It's going to find 2 there, as Boogie's looking for an opportunity to just try and zone Saros and Evi away. They're picking apart the remainders of this fight, but Boogie has opportunity for a flash kick if it presents itself. Looking and fishing with those Sonic Waves. Pause, trying to be as tanky as possible, but Gang already dropped the stone plate. A huge flamethrower ultimate's going to put everyone at about half HP on the side of DFM. Now, all the way over, Steel is just being harassed by Ace, but here comes Boogie. A beautiful kick onto Saros, delivers right into the loving arms of V3, but is it too little too late for DFM? As even once Archer goes down, there's nothing you can do to salvage the fight. Beautiful kick from Boogie, and while you do get the turn onto Archer, sure, you are able to capitalize off that punt, or you're punishing that. If that's the only member you're pulling down, it is not going to be enough in this one. V3 will continue their dominant performance of the LJL Summer Split. 6-0 after a 40-minute game, but beautifully played from both sides, as V3 are going to take this one home. This is one of those games that if it was another team other than V3 here, they easily could have lost way too much in the early game and had it run away from them, and they almost even did. But composure came through. They held together the entire time, and it really showed in the later ends of this game when DFM are just running away with early game, and there's a stress factor there of we're giving up so many objectives, we're giving up this, that, we lost kind of a random team fight, and you worry if you're the side of V3 that you feel too pressured. But then once they took that step back, took a breather, they really started to clean up a lot of those fights. And now gonna be taking a quick break before we go into the last game of today, Burning Core versus DFM. Don't go anywhere.